Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance on the PC. Tried running that. Oh gosh, when? I don't remember when now, but yeah, I got it installed. The menu worked. When I hit start and I go to the beginning mission, no textures. Zero. It is just the polygons gray, and I can see only because of the rain, because the rain is all modeled individually. So I can see kind of like a sprinkly outline around Snake as I'm moving around.
Whoa,
The moment I
that's
go
cool.
inside, solid gray. I'm like, son of a bitch.
So you were playing on hard mode?
Yeah, that's like extreme mode. Like
or you just came across
mode.
the true final boss of the game, Solid Gray.
That's true.
So true.
Just a reminder, this is a spoiler-heavy podcast. Different series that require a spoiler warning will be in the description. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Gaming Theater Podcast. Today's episode is going to be all about modernizing old consoles, and we'll use modernizing with the mod part under quotation marks to make that emphasis for that. Now, that being said, we've got a couple people here to help introduce and help go through with the subject for it. My name is Leo. I am also known as the Geek Scorpio, and I'm going to be your host this evening. Now, over to my right is going to be...
Yo, I am Brandon, also known as the Tomato Man, and I do all kinds of video editing and video work with Gaming Theater Presents.
All right. Yeah, there's other ones, those videos that you can check out, even the other podcast videos that you can check out on YouTube. That being said, over to their right is going to be...
Hi, my name is Dane. I go by DandDaine on the internet. I'm a Twitch streamer and award-winning dungeon master, and you've probably heard my voice before, but if not, welcome.
All right. And he's in many an episode. And over to my right is going to be...
This is Nibblesnarf. I am a part of Gaming Theater Presents, and how do you do?
Now, over to their right is a very special guest for us.
Hi, my name is Danny Kim. I'm just a dude. I like to do mods. I'm actually a former game store owner. That's where I cut my teeth. And I'm looking into options for the future. But I'll do mods for you.
All right. Yep. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and take a quick trip over to the magical merch booth.
Whoa!
Here we are at the magical merch booth, and over here we've got our special guest Danny. He's going to talk to us about what Danny does.
So in the magical merch booth,
It's full of magic.
Yeah. So I'm in a little bit of a holding pattern right now. I've done thousands of like PSP repairs, DS repairs, mods, and I've touched and handled so many things right now. I was a little burnt out. There's a backstory there, but I kind of swoop in when I see someone having like an emergency, like, oh, I'm leaving for this trip in 4 days and my Switch broke or whatever. And, is there anyone that could help me? All these stores said they'll take too long or they don't work on it. And then I'll come in and say, all right, what do you need? Being the good Samaritan and all or whatever. But for mods, so funny, like I'm really only doing them for myself just to try them out, and then I'll resell them. Like I don't really do mods for people because it's kind of uncharted territory for sometimes, and it's one of those things where like, sure, I can do this thing, I can follow instructions, but for my friends like Toon, Brandon knows who Toon is, he used to work with me. I've had his Turbo Duo for over like 6 years. I'm supposed to like recap it and do RGB mod and region mod and everything, but it's always been put on the back burner because he's such a good friend, and so he gets that.
That's crazy. You've had it for so long.
Timeline. I know, it's a joke at this point. You'll see old posts on Facebook like years ago. Anytime I say anything, and he'll chime in. Are you done with that mod yet?
I mean, I can speak for his work though, because I actually bought for a friend a Saturn from him that was region modded. It just had a switch on the front and flips it, and boom, Japanese running, and it's been working flawless.
Sega stuff is super easy. It's all built into the board. They make one for every region, and you just have to bridge some pads together.
Okay, cool.
I'm still afraid of soldering, so
It's one of those things where you just have to dive in.
gotta commit.
Can't overthink it. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, also I think when this comes out, oh no, we aren't going to be at that convention until later. So later I'll have another one thing to talk about. But for right now, let's go ahead and get back to the show. So with this today's episode, we're talking about modding consoles. Now, whether you are for it or against it, or the nitty gritty for that one, we'll tread water lightly on in that one. But so my introduction to modding consoles and such was back in the, how do I want to put this way, is in the early to mid 2000s, talking about stuff from the 80s and 90s. So certain chip locks, certain things that are happening with that. So kind of, this is a weird territory for some people who are hopping in there. Consoles are designed in a very specific way. And if you've been on some of these past episodes and was with us with the console wars and such, they are designed by nature to work for their own video games for a very specific reason. Nintendo famously has in their original NES consoles, a chipset on there that you had to mark down, had to have the rights to be able to, if you designed the game, to actually manufacture the cartridge in a way so that way it will work on the Nintendo. I mean, that's about it if you're on the manufacturing side for it itself. For more information on how this gets wonky, look up Tengen. Tengen's games were, they found a loophole and got around that sort of mess with it.
I think the chip that they made that bypassed it was internally called the White Rabbit.
I think so, but it was sort of a back doorway for
Yep.
other third-party people to get their information and put themselves on Nintendo, but not be officially Nintendo.
Part of that was like they had really strict software restrictions, like content wise, and all that stuff too.
I think you can only make, you can only make as a game designer 5 games a year.
Yeah, it's
And
like 4 or
that
5
was
a
it.
year per publisher.
Per publisher, yeah.
So companies would get around that by opening new publication studios, like Konami made Ultra Games, and
Yep. THQ, that's where they got their start, is by publishing those. Some with lower quality, like LJN. Funny enough, we talked about this in our Mega Man review. That's the reason why Mega Man 6 is not published by Capcom, like all the other Mega Mans. It was published by Nintendo,
right, that was
because Capcom hit their max at that point.
But they knew that was a cash cow, so they had to
Nintendo knew what was up. They're like, you know what? We'll
yeah.
But modding consoles allowed them to do certain things for it, especially back in the 80s days when some of the modding consoles was to make them work in general. So like I actually had an old Texas Instrument computer, and I'll be honest, we couldn't get it to work. Bought it at a yard sale. My dad's like, I don't know computers, but I know soldering. So he just soldered the right wires and it started working. And we're like, cool, we'll get this it's going. That's it. This is also the reason why I only had one game for the entirety of the Texas Instruments lifespan, because we only could find one.
What game was it?
Phase, I think it is.
Is that with an F or a PH?
PH. You played as a little starship, and you had to, very much like Defender, but built by Temu.
Oh. Still cool though. The fundamentals are there.
The
right?
fundamentals are there.
Yeah.
I, as a kid, would fail because one of the things you have to do is, much like Top Gun, fly in, gas up. But they put the gas station always had to be able to have a roof, so you had to go in a cave and then slide out. And it's designed for a joystick. We couldn't find a joystick. We got this at the yard sale somewhere.
Oh yeah.
So we had to use a keyboard.
The keyboard.
It was temperamental.
At least it wasn't a D-pad.
It would have been better with a D-pad.
Yeah, probably. Who am I kidding?
Or just mouse controlled.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah.
That was me. I had when I had the Mac Plus, the first Macintosh, I had Dark Castle, and I played that. You can play that with a mouse. You can control where he throws a rock and where he jumps. So that's all I had too for years. Never finished it either. It's a hard game.
It is tough.
They all were back then.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I should tackle it now that I'm an old man.
You might get surprised. I went back to do Ultima 1 just to try it out, but so I have a modern keyboard designed for like MOBAs and gaming, and so they don't have a 10 key. But Ultima requires a 10 key, so I can't play Ultima because I don't have the keys for it.
You don't have
Which
a
I-
10 key?
Well, it had like the macro buttons. Right?
Yeah, everything
You
with
had the overlays.
Yeah, no 10 key.
My
you
God.
got a weird ass keyboard, dude. I have a mechanical keyboard, and it's
I can't live without a 10 key.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
need
for
that.
work and stuff.
I got that. I like super nice specs for my computer. For apparently, I'm like got a really nice glowing one. Yeah, like Dan's got a nice glowing keyboard. He's got a 10 key.
Yeah.
Everyone else has got a 10 key.
I like how we're all showing off.
I'm gonna have to put this edit where everyone's showing off their 10 keys.
Yes.
Leo, it's not the size of your keyboard that matters. It's just how you use it. But they're just letting you know there are options out there for everybody.
Uh-huh.
And the
You
fact
could
of the
get a
matter
10
is you
key.
can't use it without a 10 key.
We could
But-
get you a 10 key.
You can get separate 10 keys.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
Yeah, they also do that. That's true. That's very true.
I am doing that. Going with a whole keyboard with a 10 key. I want them glued together. I need them together.
They exist.
I guess this comes back to this point. Ultima is unplayable without a 10 key. So, and Ultima, for the most part, is such an old game. If you try to play it now, unless you have the right software and hardware to handle it, it won't work. So, yeah, without a 10 key, Ultima is unplayable for me, and I mean unplayable.
No one
literally
made
cannot
like a
play it.
patch that lets you remap the buttons or anything.
Not for Ultima. That was a DOS game. There's no
Oh,
patch for
sure.
DOS. You just for that, you just take it as it is, and you
Yeah,
liked it.
He's not gonna go and download like the GOG version. He's gonna go like hardcore DOS mode, man.
No, that is the GOG version.
Really?
Yeah, so let me explain.
You know, I was thinking of one of the remakes because they've remade Ultima 1 like 4 times or something. So each version has differing setups. So I'm thinking of a totally different one. I get so confused with these.
That's fine. So GOG is actually very important to this subject matter. GOG is GOG, or Good Old Games, as they're actually titled as, is a software providing company similar to Steam and Steam, Epic Store, Origin.
Google any
Uplay.
provider, yeah.
Yeah, and Uplay. But however, they specialize on originally for getting older games. Their notoriety is mainly for being able to sort of downgrade. They don't change or modify or the game itself, more as they make it so the game will work on a modern system,
Yeah.
which is kind of one of the reasons why I'm actually a little more for modding like consoles and things. Mostly because sometimes they're out of print. Their GOG has stories upon stories of trying to get the rights to hunt down games and such. So, for those who don't know, there's always a chance some software or video game becomes what's called abandonware, which is literally, as it states, software that is abandoned for one reason or another. The reasons can vary. There is something like between like 1985 or in between the early 80s to the mid 90s, because of how rights are done with Tetris, there is something like 30 to 40 different versions of Tetris running around.
Yeah, that's
And-
Yeah, plenty of stuff in licensed limbo too.
Mhm.
Like companies don't exist anymore, so they can't. But it's still owned by a parent company or whatever.
or by the original founder of said company. So, but they don't do anything anymore. So it's just out there and
Yeah.
gone.
Although you also have the ones that are litigated outwards. There's a few games that are done from independent game designers back in the 80s and 90s, and what they did was they basically lost it to like a divorce or something like that.
That's like the worst way to go, man.
and she just burned it in a big, trash heap. 'cause-
Yeah, she got the
Or
source
just-
code,
yeah.
and then she just took a magnet to the drive. Gone forever.
With this, what we're trying to talk about here is that sometimes you just have older software that people don't have or lose from one reason to another. A parent company, litigation. In one case, literally lost it. Like they
There's more than
have the
one.
source code in the disc and they forgot where they put it.
There's more than one of those.
Yeah.
Like Silent Hill 2
Oh
is
yeah.
one of the that one they don't have the source code for. I think Bluepoint or whoever it was that did the HD remaster had to rebuild like I want to say 20% of the game because they didn't have a master of the source code, and that's why it's like broken.
All of Final Fantasy VIII's music.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
Yep.
Final Fantasy VIII suffered a big one on that one. There.
Kingdom Hearts, zero source code. So the 1.5, they had to rebuild that entire thing, and that's why you can't use the old strategy guide because there's actually a chest missing.
That is such a mess.
It's like a late game chest, but it's just an example of these guys get mad props for doing what they did to make it come out again.
So if you are, I guess a purist is the way to say this, or I'm going to use traditionalist. I think that's a better way to go. As a traditionalist, sometimes you want to play the system the way that the system is meant to be played originally.
Correct.
So if you are, if you do that, sometimes you just can't do that anymore. And GOG, for its purposes, is one that tries its best to not change anything with how the game's going to react, but it does change things to make sure it will work on your system. Because if you've ever actually, because I've done this, I've found old games. I'm like, cool, I'm going to put this old game in my new system. This game was meant to run on on something with less than 5 kilobytes of memory. I've got 32 gigs. It's just racing to the end. I literally can't start because this thing is like on speed, just trying to rush through the whole system.
I've definitely experienced things like this before as well. I remember I went back, and this is when I had a disk drive in my computer, so it was a number of years ago. But I tried to play the original StarCraft from disk. And I was like, oh, this will be fine, right? Like, my system can obviously handle it. Why wouldn't it be able to? Yeah, everything was a technicolor nightmare and just absolutely wild. Because, it wasn't coded for the systems that I was running it on.
I've got a story like that too, actually. Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance on the PC. Tried running that. Oh gosh, when? I don't remember when now, but yeah, I got it installed. The menu worked. When I hit start and I go to the no textures, zero. It is just the polygons gray, and I can see only because of the rain, because the rain is all modeled individually. So I can see kind of like a sprinkly outline around Snake as I'm moving around.
Whoa,
The moment I go
cool.
inside, solid gray. I'm like, son of a bitch.
So you were playing on hard mode?
Yeah, that's like extreme mode. Like
Or you just came
blindfold
across the
mode.
true final boss of the game, Solid Gray.
True.
True.
Did you try unplugging a controller and putting it into a different slot? Just throwing it out there.
Yes, I did try using the PS2 port for my mouse instead of the USB.
Yeah,
I
that's
still
what I
had a
would have done.
converter for that.
You know, you say,
PS/2.
yeah,
Thank you. Yes.
you say that, and like I had something similar, and like for this one, I'm sure a lot of you guys don't know about these type of games. Like Star Trek has got a list of PC games, a lot of PC games. Star Trek is also like one of the franchises that gets like some of the worst treatment when it comes to ports because of how many good games there actually are that you just won't see in today's day and age. Minus what's on GOG. Like, don't get me wrong, what's on GOG is pretty good, but that's also not to say that what's on GOG is,
The
amazing.
creme de la creme.
Yes, because like if you played like Armada, which is basically the StarCraft version of Star Trek, essentially, and you were to play that. And I bring this up because I remember this very, very clearly when I played it recently. Was that I would be fighting the Borg, and when you blow up a Borg ship would then suddenly turn into 4 Borg ships before it exploded again because the textures did not know how to register the fact that it blew up. And I love this too because it's like I could go on for days about bugs I would find in Star Trek. It's like, Leo, you know me, I've got
You got a stockpile.
I got a stockpile of Star Trek games, and my favorite was Star Trek Klingon Academy, which is like I wish someday GOG would bring it forth because if it does, I recommend it to anybody to play it. It is probably one of the best Star Trek games ever. But when I fired it up, and this was like before I finally just ditched the CD drive, going like, you know what? Clearly, I don't need a CD drive anymore. This was the final nail in the coffin for me for CD drives. Was I would put Star Trek in, Star Trek Klingon Academy in. I would fire it up. I would play it, and I would get to a mission. You would see space, and then you would see space. And by that, I mean, there's some stars there, and then there's a big old black texture of just emptiness. And you know that's not supposed to be there. But then if you turn to your left, you see stars there again. For some reason, the way it loaded, because it had its own skybox, essentially, was that it would load half the skybox, but then the other side was just missing. You know it's there. You can fly in it, but it's missing.
I think that would just canonically be Uncharted.
Yeah, that's your final frontier right there.
Hey,
That is the
it's
final
dark
frontier.
matter.
It is dark matter, yes.
Yeah.
We got a buddy whose husband coded and programmed some of those Star Trek games. Nibble Snarf.
Oh,
Ah,
I guarantee you've played
his
some
fault.
of them.
yeah. You know, I'm like, as of now, even though we're not saying he's the reason why, but we are going to blame him.
You know, I'll pass it along.
Well, probably though. Like, yeah, if like I actually still have all those games because I'm a pack rat. I don't like throwing out things, as Leo has known since he used to live with me, or I should say vice versa. But still, yeah.
Oh, the big boxes look good on the shelf.
Well, and you
Oh,
never
God,
know,
yeah.
right? Like it could become abandonware, and you need the original hardware to play it. So makes sense to me.
But isn't eventually all that media going to just rot away or like demagnetize and
Eventually, yeah.
No, never. It's gonna be
everything
perfect
is just
forever.
going to. So that's why we need GOG, right?
So yeah, I mean, for me, one of the things on this is that sometimes you get a game that you didn't expect. Like, I go to game shows and game trade places, and all of a sudden I'll get the Japanese version of a game, and I don't have a Japanese console to make it work. So kind of have to mod to get the thing to work, so that way I can play the game I accidentally got somehow.
I mean, I
can
guess an
beat
early
like-
example of that would be like back when Nintendo stopped doing the chip lockout, they just put different backs on the 64 cartridges.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Growing up, I mean, people got creative. They like take a hacksaw to the back of the cart so it'll fit, or go in there with pliers and just break the
Oh
little
yeah, and just
tabs.
crush
I
and
was,
rip
I was
off
about
the
to say
nibs.
that. Yeah, I actually remember that being a thing too. We used to have a video game trading store here that had Dragon Ball Z, the Super Nintendo version, and it was playing on a standard SNES, but it was a Famicom cartridge. And I remember the guy saying it was his. He was telling me about that. And he was just like, he's like, yeah, you see this right here? He's like showing it to me. And I'm like
Like a
maybe
pin
12
converter.
years old, fascinated by this thing. Yeah, it just showing that. Just here it is. Like, this is how you can play Japanese games. I'm like, there's a world outside of. How much have I been missing? I've been lied to.
Yeah.
Region locking is a serious thing. It's one of the reasons why I forget which one, if it's the Game Boy or the Game Boy Advance, was the one with no region lock.
Would have been Game Boy Advance, I believe.
Yeah, Game Boy Advance didn't have region lock. I remember I ordered like this drifting game because it had skylines in it and stuff, and it was really fun. Like GT Advance 3 or something, but it was only a Japan release. So
But I mean, because it's not region locked, just slap it on in. You're good to go.
mhm. I mean, Game Boy was too. I came across a Ranma cart on original Game Boy, and it's mostly text based. You just walk around, you do little fights, and then you walk around. It's story based. I didn't read Japanese. It was just all like guess and check. It was like choose your own adventure. Like, okay, I'm on this screen. I did height last time. I'm gonna do EA this time.
Mhm.
All right, I progressed. Like, I eventually beat the game just doing that. Like,
Gotta love brute
think-
force.
yeah.
Yep. Oh, don't
It's
tell
like
me
picking
about
high
that.
low.
I've completely gone through an entire game not knowing how to read Japanese text and still figured it all out because it's just like
Pure
I was
will.
addicted to the game. If the game is good enough, you'll be addicted to it. But I mean, we should say, like, when we're talking like region locking though too, especially if we talk about like the game, but we should add a little asterisk because while as Danny had mentioned here, that with the Game Boy being not region locked, he is absolutely correct about this. But there is a little asterisk there is that people think that, well, that's not true. I tried it out on the Super Game Boy And that is region locked because it's region locked to the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you were to do this and it's like, oh no, the region lock is on the Game Boy or it doesn't exist on the Game Boy, but then it's like, well, that's not true. I tried playing this game right here on the Super Nintendo. It's like, well, yeah, because you're playing off the actual Super Nintendo's code. Because all the Super Game Boy did was just be an extension. It was an adapter. That's all. So
So if you're Super Nintendo, you can't really. Can you get around that back in the day? Asterisks to anybody who's trying to listen to this?
You're gonna say probably, but I mean,
I'm not saying we can't. I'm not saying we can't. So these are two examples of why people would mod in the first place. Region locking because you wanted to play games from other regions. It was a bigger thing in the in the 90s, I think, to get around.
I think what drove it really was piracy, right?
It really
like
was.
I think my first import cart was on a Nintendo, and it was one of those short ones,
Mhm.
so it needed a long adapter, 72 to whatever 60
Mhm.
pin, and it had like 200 games on it. It was great, right?
Oh my
It was-
god.
Yep.
So and that was a lot. I played Ikari Warriors and things like that for the first time.
Mhm.
Like other things I never had exposure to, and then Japanese games.
yep.
Mhm. Dreamcast, unfortunately, that was one of its biggest problems. Was that?
Yeah, that
yeah.
was its downfall.
Yeah.
That was,
And not
that
only
was-
that, it killed
yeah.
lasers. Like the
It did- yep.
laser had to work harder to read CDRs. So if you didn't have like the right kind of CDR you burnt it to, which you didn't always find that, it would like kill the system, the console,
Mhm.
the addons, the PSU.
I mean, even if you weren't using a burnt, you can hear the grinding of the disc run. So it's like, do I really want to keep using this motor?
That was the charm though of the Dreamcast. Like
It really was.
It was.
It was a mixtape. That's what that is.
Right.
And look, Skies of Arcadia is one of the best games ever made. So
It really is. Like,
we took some good, we took some bad. Like we got something out of it.
what I mean, like, not to get
Seaman
too,
was revolutionary.
Seaman,
Yeah.
yeah. Not to get too sidetracked though, but
True.
it's like when people talk about Dreamcast, and yeah, that was the biggest downfall of Dreamcast was the fact that it had the world's easiest code to crack for pirating. Like, I'm sorry, but when you based the whole thing off of Windows 97, I think it was, or 98, you kind of had that one coming. But and I mean, it's an unfortunate thing too, because it's like, like had this never happened, we probably still would have had Sega as a console in the running and still had another alternative amongst the giants that we have now. But it's like when we talk Dreamcast, though, it's like there are so many games that you could not get in America that you could only get from Japan, and the lack of region locking made it really worthwhile. If you remember, Leo, like for me, the game I was speaking about where I went through those pure Japanese was Illbleed.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's
That
like,
game is
I
so
played-
weird.
I love that game though. It's like it's that right amount of WTF-ery that just keeps you coming back for more. And when I first played it, I played the Japanese version. I went through it not just once but twice because I was like, this game is really stupidly fun. I don't understand it. But then when you say that and you say fun, you think about the Dreamcast and you think the library of the Dreamcast, and you can't really go, is there truly a bad game on the Dreamcast?
No one can. You never talk to anyone that can speak bad about Dreamcast, right? It hits all the nostalgia. Everyone loved it. It just is unfortunate it lost out.
I know someone that does talk ill of the Dreamcast, and I look at them, I just say, it sold more than the Wii U, so shut up.
Maybe they didn't have friends. They couldn't play
Yeah,
Power
that's kind of-
Stone or Marvel's Capcom 2 with
Dude.
Oh, Marvel Guys Go too. Yeah.
Marvel
No,
vs.
Power
Capcom
Stone,
2, yeah.
bro.
Like pretty much any of the
Third Strike.
actual sprite 2D sprite games that were out there. So Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, any of those, Capcom vs. SNK, all those. Any of those games were king on the Sega Saturn and king on the Dreamcast. Both consoles reigned supreme in those.
Sega made an in-house arcade stick. It's just like,
Mhm.
come on.
So with that does bring me to a point on that one, which says so you went for Marvel versus Capcom 2. When Marvel vs. Capcom 2 came out for the Dreamcast, you had to get a very specific version if you wanted it for the Dreamcast in the United States.
Correct.
And because some of those were there was 2 different versions of the game. It was just a slight coding change, but it made a
Oh, it
world
was a
difference.
revision.
Yep.
Here's why. In the way that your game was supposed to unlock characters was from a certain events that are happening on it. After so many hours, like in Smash Brothers, you will have a character that will be unlocked. After so many playthroughs. Now, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, especially in the arcade, was a weird one because after so many playthroughs of you beating the game memorizes it and makes the end boss slightly harder every time. It was something that memorized. So why do I bring this up? One of the ways that you were supposed to unlock the characters at home, especially in the Japanese version, which is where the original copy came in, was you had to take your memory card, go to the arcade, plug the memory card in, and it memorizes how many games that how many playthroughs that you had to unlock certain characters. So if you didn't have the memory card and you don't have those arcade games, which we didn't in the United States, you had 20 characters locked behind that. It wasn't like a small amount. Granted, that's because Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has a ridiculously there's like
Yeah, a huge roster.
a huge roster.
Yeah.
It's like
I
100
remember
characters
being
or
able
something
to
like that.
unlock all of them.
You could, yes, you still could eventually, but it was just like at the
Yeah,
time.
you could do like training mode and just leave it on overnight, and then just the hours locked
Yep.
in training mode would
Oh,
unlock.
you mean stock fighting for Smash? That's exactly what we did from Mewtwo.
But you couldn't for those characters because they were locked behind. It needed to read that you went to the arcade with the memory card.
Oh man.
And so, like, you're just locked out of these characters just because we don't have that specific arcade cabinet to make it work. And that was a thing back in the 2000s. I remember NFL Blitz let you remember. You could bring your memory card for, I forgot which system it was.
Nintendo 64.
Because you could put in custom plays that you made on NFL Blitz and then use them in the arcade version, which I think was a cool concept. But again, if you didn't have the right version of that, you're donezo. If you wanted a very screwy version or one of the earliest screwy versions of that, you ever heard of the arcade game called what is it? Smash TV?
Yep.
Yes.
So here's the thing. In Smash TV, at some point they tell you about a secret level called the Pleasure Dome. That's not actually in the game. They had to rebuild and they were what happened was they had to make a whole new arcade cabinet to add in the coding to put an extra level in there for the Pleasure Dome because they never actually did it because it was a joke that the devs decided to put in there. Yeah, it's just a fake level. And then they got a ton of complaints from people throwing hours and hours into that game. Where is
that
it?
could be
You,
like
you tell me where that
pseudo
actually
fraud.
is.
It's all for quarter munching, right?
Right.
So there's some games that didn't have an ending. Like, what is it? There's some game like Guerrilla War or something on Nintendo that was an arcade port. It had like 3 levels and it just cycled through and got harder and harder. And there was no ending. You just put quarter in after quarter. And so like things like, hey, there's a secret level.
But is it there? No.
Yeah.
Fooled you. So they had to put it in there because they got too many complaints for that one. And now,
Right.
if someone's like, hey, I got an arcade at home. You want to play Smash TV? Cool. Is it the one with it? Don't know. Roll the dice. Let's see what you got. And people will... Honestly, you would see a lot of mod conversions and such for this, especially for the arcades. Mostly because getting an original for a lot of those things is just almost insane. So if you wanted an original copy of, Dragon's Lair, you have to have a laser disc player.
Yep.
And you have to have a laser disc player and put it in an arcade cabinet and hope the chipsets work so that way it will work. So a lot of people will mod to keep the coding going because granted that is a way easier task than to do that.
Well, and like so many of those like Laserdisc players in those cabinets, they just burnt up because it was such a hot, arcade unit. And literally, but also figuratively, as in people couldn't get enough of it because of the smooth animation. So people kept coming back and trying and trying and trying, and it would just burn the shit out of that motor and that laser.
I also don't think it helps too the fact that if you think about it, your average arcade back in the day was open from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. And that's the thing that's running for nearly 14 hours nonstop, no breaks.
At probably 100 degrees.
At 100 degrees, yeah. I mean, it's going to do some damage, which is why those ones typically tend to burn out the most. Where there was the Space Ace, Dragon's Lair 2, and the other one that was the cowboy, where it was a time traveling cowboy. I forget the name of it, but it was one that was the holographic one.
The holographic one, I remember that.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So
with like the triangle in the box, and it's like,
Yep.
woo, and there's like a cowboy here.
There's a
Yeah,
cowboy and a wizard and a
a
space
cowboy and a
princess.
wizard, and space princess and cowboy cast spell shoot.
All those games had such bad like latency issues. That's my biggest. Like I couldn't ever get anywhere because you hit left, and it's like I hit left though. Like,
Yep.
But I did it.
but yeah, it's another way to eat all your quarters.
Mm. I would love to see if someone can make a mod for that one, mostly because I would love to see a holographic video game again for the funsies of the novelty. Would it be great? No.
Like a true one, like that one was too, because like VR, yeah, VR is a thing and whatnot, but like there was something about that game that had that unique charm. The fact that it really was a holographic game. Like it actually had the characters that popped out. They weren't tied to a screen. They were tied to a screen, but like they were projected. They were up there. You could see them.
There's
And
like
that's
multiple panes of glass, right? So
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
project
it
on the
reflected
different-
light in order to
yeah,
make
and
it
it
work.
just it was just so cool to see.
It's one of those things when people don't think that we've had futuristic tech but older tech. It's like 3D glasses. We have 3D glasses now. We had them in the 50s, but they're not as great.
Sega Master had 3D glasses.
Oh, that's true. The Sega Master.
Yeah.
Rad Racer.
What's that term? Retrofuturism, I think is what it's called. So it's
Mhm.
like
Yep.
stuff like Blade Runner, like everything, and that's all analog, but it's all like the distant future, which is now 10 years ago. But I digress.
Yeah, like Star Wars. They had levers and switches and dials, and everything nowadays is all capacitive touch. It's
Oh
like-
God, yeah.
it's
we go
more
back?
like
Star
new
Trek.
generation than
Star Trek had iPads.
Yeah.
They would
Right.
call them that, but
yeah.
I think we're more akin to Star Trek in the timeline than we are anything else. But I mean,
I wish I
digress.
believed that was true.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
if
I
you
really
think
wa-
technology-wise, we are.
I
but-
really
Turn
want
poop
that
into
to be
food.
true.
So
That would-
yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is something. Do you remember what it is? I think it's called Ironstorm. It's an Xbox game that let you pilot a mech, but you needed a. This
it's
is
a
one.
40-button controller.
Yeah, I need a
It's,
40-button control.
yeah.
It's got
Steel
knobs.
Battalion.
It's got switches.
I was gonna say it's still Battalion.
I've
Steel
got it in the
Battalion.
other
Thank you,
room,
thank you.
and one of the lights doesn't work on the buttons, and it's depressing.
Well, actually, I take that. There's 3 games. It was it's Steel Battalion, Mech Assault, and Mech Assault 2 Lone Wolf, and they all used that controller. And I remember that controller because like I badly wanted to buy that, but I could not justify 200.
Mhm.
Yeah, like and 200 in the early 2000s was a lot of freaking money
What do you
for a
mean?
controller.
What do you mean in the early 2000s? 200 is a lot of money now.
Well, I mean, yeah,
But that's like a
yeah.
grocery store trip, you
Yeah,
know?
That's a
Yeah.
grocery store trip, though, Dane.
I can buy 1 carton of eggs for that price.
But I need
Yeah,
my
this is
mech
gonna age
driving.
well.
Yeah. Shout out to you listening.
I got
in
it for
2025.
Christmas. I think
Better
when it
shout
came
out to you listening in 2035.
Yeah.
Right.
They repurposed those controllers in 2035 for the
Mhm.
mech war against
Sure.
the
Yep.
The coolness of that game was the fact that it was so tactile.
It's hard, too.
And it's super hard.
Yeah.
You didn't
It's a
eject in time,
beta.
then game over. You
And they
gotta
were
start
hardcore.
over from the beginning.
Yeah. I've actually flooded my engine. I didn't know that was a thing I could do.
Run out of fuel because I'm like,
Dude, I fell over. And I was like, what's happening? And I'm pressing all the
Yeah.
buttons, and like the
Yeah, you
windshield
fall
wipers are
over.
going, and I'm like,
You have
I
to
guess I'm
eject.
stuck.
That was one of those games that took what the concept of MechWarrior was from the PC and cranked it up to 10. Actually, I'm sorry, it cranked it up to 11, and then it took the knob and broke it off and said, "Deal with it." That's
It
basically
said it
what
lives
did.
here now.
Yeah, it lives here now. This
You
is
pay
your
this
real
price
MechWarrior
and
game.
you play this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
They
but
did make
that-
a multiplayer version of it.
Yep.
Yep,
there was
they
a
did.
multiplayer expansion sequel kind of thing they did.
And they never
It
got
was
done.
sold separate, but I have that disc too because it came with my bundle when I got it. But
So Gerald, one of the directors of PRGE, he has this other company where he can set that up. He could do the full like 8-player setup for you. Bring CRTs. He has all the controllers, all the
didn't they
Xboxes.
do that like 4 years ago or something, or like
They
4
do that
shows
at the
ago?
they do that at the show pretty often.
That was one of the coolest things, though.
Well, the thing is just it's like the controller, because one of them only moves side to side. Everyone wants to like joystick it, and that'll break. Like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Gotta be careful of that.
Yeah.
I knew I was talking to a couple of guys who they made custom arcade cabinets for funsies, and they had very specific button setups. Because so a lot of arcades, once they got to about the 90s or so, will use a type of mass emulation to make everything run better. Like you just slide a chip in, kind of like the same way we would use cartridges now.
Well, so yeah,
yeah.
Capcom had the CPS2,
Yeah,
where they had the A board, the motherboard, and then you just swapped out the B boards to different games.
Mhm.
Which is like really operator friendly. They have these cool thermal plastic cases. I used to collect them.
Also got all the Neo Geo stuff too.
Back in the
Yeah.
80s, that's how they didn't do it that way, which was a pain because that means you had to call if you owned an arcade and the thing broke, you had to call the manufacturer, the original manufacturer, and try to get through the ordering to get that connected, or hopefully hire an engineer on staff that can solder these things and put it together.
Arcade operators, they're a rare and
They're-
funny breed.
Yeah,
They're
Like a
very
lot of
rare.
them hate their job. They don't like video games. They're just good electricians, and so they
Yeah.
can just fix stuff. And I knew a dude that was into games. He was like a pretty good Street Fighter player, and he was an arcade operator. And so I made friends with him.
it was weird because talking to them, they actually had specifics for which arcade ones, because a lot of the people will cannibalize. So they take parts and pieces from other arcades, put them together, and use them to connect things together. If they could, one of the ones that they wanted the most was Street Fighter 2's control scheme. Street Fighter 2, I think the original one, not the Turbo Edition. That was like their favorite because the way it's designed was designed with the intent, and specifically the one in the United States. That's you get the U.S. copy of Street Fighter 2, of the original Street Fighter 2 edition, because the buttons were designed with bar drinkers in mind, because they would be in, because that's who would have a lot of the arcades. So the maintenance for that was really easy because it's designed to last for hours on end. It has to be able to work even if the keys get sticky from people dropping beer and crap into there. And so they were just made with tougher and sterner stuff because of it. And then
Just
because there's 6
manufactured to
buttons,
take
you
a
can use it
beating.
for almost any game on that.
Yeah, the hot buttons. Have some experience with that, and you have to replace micro switches all the time. They only have like 10,000 press lifespans or something.
Yeah, like there's an
So-
actual lifespan to how long a button can be pushed down on there.
Mhm.
And if the reason why you want the original one, if you can find it, is because they're pressure sensitive buttons on there for the original Street Fighter 2. So because they're pressure sensitive, they were designed with extra lifespan on that. There was one guy I was telling you about that goes, in the right conditions, literally you can just take a wet rag and you clean it and you're done for the evening for it, like low maintenance for it. Meanwhile, he's worked with other arcade games from different things that also have like 6 buttons on it, and like for example, the one for they played the original Japanese version of Dungeons and Dragons. There is a series of Dungeons and Dragons games that Capcom made specifically for the arcade.
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
good beat 'em ups.
I love those games.
Yeah,
so much fun.
So much fun. I picked the cleric because I knew nobody was going to heal me.
Sticks to snakes.
Hey, it'll get me through the day. So with that though, the buttons on that one is a lot more sensitive. So they jammed up really easily. And then sometimes they will just like root beer tapper or bud tapper, whichever version you're getting. That one literally has a I've seen bars when they can't find the original controller, just replace it with an actual top stat from like one of their bar place things, one of their kegs.
It's interesting to think about how like console modding isn't really just console modding. It's hardware modding just in a general sense, because we've
Yep.
just been going on and on and on about how this actually technically started with people modifying arcade cabinets, and it just slowly transitioned into us modifying the consoles we ended up with at home over time. I just remember having a Goldfinger when I lived in California, which was like a serial port adapter that you would plug into the back of the PS1, like the early models, because they removed it on later ones, I think.
Yep, they did.
And it would basically just tell the BIOS it's everything. So I played the Japanese Dragon Ball GT Final Bout, and God, that game is not good. But
But it is
being
an
a Dragon Ball
experience.
fanatic,
It is an experience.
yeah, I mean, being what was I, 8-9 years old, living in California and in an area where I actually had an Asian friend who had Pokemon Gold before I ever got to touch it. Yeah, of course I'm going to use the Goldfinger and play the import games that he had. Who's going to stop me? Certainly not my mother, because she doesn't know what I'm talking about. What's this James Bond you have?
Yeah, those are interesting. We sold those.
Really?
Game Trigger. Yeah, in Beaverton. I mean, we did full on Sony PlayStation chip modding.
Mhm.
We offer that as a service. Like a game store doing that is kind of like putting a nail in his own coffin, right? Like, here you go. Here's the keys to the kingdom. We'll never see you again. Bye bye. But we did that, and we sold Goldfingers. We sold, all sorts of things, just whatever we got our hands on. We had import games. We were like one of the first in Oregon to have and sell import games. So
So, game store runners, if you are listening to this, don't do this.
yeah, right. I mean, you can play imported games on a PlayStation just by like listening to the sounds. Have you ever done that? Like you keep you put like a
The disc
cigarette
swap.
butt, and then you keep the lid open, and then you let it load the table of contents of a US disc, and then you swap it out real quick, and then
Mhm.
it'll just load and boot up the Japanese game.
Yeah, because the
So you don't
disc will
even need
slow
it.
down. As after it reads
Yeah.
that, it slows down
So it's
for a
like,
moment.
and
then you
then
just
it'll
flip it.
stop for like a split second, and then at that point you can just swap it real quick.
I actually didn't know about that. That's crazy.
Oh man!
Yeah.
Before I
I
had the
thought that was
Goldfinger,
black
that's what I
magic when
did.
people were using like Monster Hunter, just regular Monster Hunter, and having to switch around music CDs to make their own monsters
the
and
Monster
things. And get
Rancher.
stuff. Why?
That was
No,
cool.
That's Monster Rancher, not Monster Hunter.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Monster
Monster
Rancher.
Rancher.
What was it? Action Replay and PS Exchange were two of the disc swapping systems you could do, and actually they would come with springs, so it would actually allow you to put it into the back of like the tray where the pressure piece would be to tell the system that the tray is down, and it
Right,
would let
yeah.
the
Not
lid stay
everyone would have
open.
cigarette butts.
Yeah,
So
why would
it
9-year-olds have
come
that?
with little weighted piece and a spring, and it'd make
Or
it move.
rock, whatever.
We sold those too. Those were funny. Yeah, we sold a lot of those. The PS Exchange. It's so funny.
Man, you guys say that, and you make me think back the not as a Commodore, but not the 64. I want to say it was the Amiga. Yeah, it was the Amiga, which was another disc-based console, but it got to a point where it's like when you talk about the springs and the locks and whatnot, because you close the cap down on that thing. The older that system got, obviously the less functioning it became. People had to figure out good ways to get around that, and I only just remember this because it's like I remember my aunt had one of those for her son. And I remember he had to put his shoe on top of the disc portion of it to get the extra weight to get the game to load.
Yeah, so that's another trick. If your PlayStation wasn't loading games very well, you just put it upside down.
Yep.
So that essentially the laser would hang lower to the disc, and it would be able to focus and read the disc easier.
Yep.
It was
People
like
also did
magic.
that for letting the heat disperse better, because the heat vents were all down.
Yes,
Oh,
they
I mean
were.
that's probably
And that's
that makes
another
sense.
thing.
Heat rises, you
Mhm.
know.
I just
Better
love
than-
the idea of, hey Dane, I'm gonna go play on the PlayStation. Go get me my Nikes.
So he had an Amiga CD32. Those are
Yeah, he had
actually
an Amiga
quite rare.
CD32.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
I don't know what
people
what
don't
he
really
did with
know
it.
about this.
Unfortunately, I don't really keep up with a lot of my family. Not that I don't want to. Okay, it's mostly because I don't want to, but um,
We
it's
all
also
know that.
it's also because it's just one of those ones where it's like my family has always been very estranged. Like the only person I really talk to on a regular basis is my dad, my mom, and my brother. That's it. Most of my cousins, they're kind of off doing their own thing and somewhere. But yeah, he had one of those Amiga 32s, the CD based ones, and yeah, I mean, like that's also the one that had, if I remember correctly, it had this weird fighting game on it that wasn't Street Fighter. I don't know. I can't remember what the crap it was called, but it was bad. It was a bad game. And any fighting game, well,
So bad it's good. But
no, it was just bad. It was
But
one
it
of
was
those ones where
memorable.
it was very memorable. I'll put it that way. It's one of those ones where it's like when you have to have a fighting game and your fighting game involves a jump button instead of just pressing up on the D-pad. It's usually not going to be a good fighting
it's like
game.
Karate Champ or something.
Yeah.
But Karate Champ's like the first, so he gets the pass.
Well,
Does it
okay.
though?
Yeah, because it
Yeah,
gets
actually-
the first.
Karateka? I think it's Karateka or something.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
Karateka.
No, it's
Yes.
Karate Champ. That's
no,
the thing.
Karate Champ was Karate Champ had the dual sticks that
Yeah.
you used for that, which I actually thought was great because if you pressed up and then down, you would do a backflip. If you pressed if you pressed up on the left and then down on the right stick, you would do a backflip backwards. If you pressed up on the right stick and then pressed down on the left stick, you would do a front flip forwards. It's like it actually had a really cool design when it came to how it did this combat. Now, Karateka though, which was for the Atari. I'm pretty sure I butchered the name of that though. Yeah, that one was a bad one. That was not a good game. And then they got a remaster. They re-released it like 2 years ago.
Amiga CD32's lifespan was 1993 to 1994.
Yeah, it was
One.
a very it was a lifespan of 1 year. Had I think like 8 or 9 games on
Mhm.
it.
Some weird cousins there.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something like what people give crap to the 3DO for is because of how expensive it is. No one gives crap to the games. The games were really well designed for that one. But I can't think of a 3DO game that didn't eventually get ported to the PlayStation. So,
I can think of one.
yeah.
Ooh.
Super Street Fighter 2 Grandmasters Edition.
There's
Oh,
a
yeah, right.
Grandmasters Edition.
3DO is known for that. Capcom made a 6-button controller for the
Yup.
3DO for that game. It is so good. It's really good.
It actually has also considered one of the best OSTs as well. Like
Yeah.
the OST for that version of the game is considered the de facto best version of.
It's
all
got
Street
that
Fighter 2.
memorable intro where it's like
Mhm.
Ryu in the dark and then lightning and
Yep.
Wasn't that in Alpha? In one of the other Street Fighter games?
Well,
Oh,
there's
so
some of that.
They
redid
reworked
it for
it a few
Alpha,
times.
but yeah,
Okay.
the original that started though was Super Street Fighter 2. That is the one that started it all.
Because
So-
that preceded Alpha series.
Street Fighter 2. You were Skyrim before Skyrim was on everything.
Oh yeah. Like
Not
going
wrong.
back to like controllers and keyboards, I was gonna mention Street Fighter 2 was my experience. I didn't have a controller for that, so I had to learn how to fireball with the arrow buttons and stuff on the
Oh
keyboard.
no!
Yeah, it was pretty hard to play.
Oh no!
Like I was dumb. I should have played like charge characters, right? Like, but I wanted to play Ryu. Or Kid.
Guile,
Yeah, of
course.
Chun-Li,
Shoto
E
player.
Honda, those all would have been perfect with the
Yeah,
keyboard.
yeah.
Does bring me to a point. Would you count modding controllers for certain things?
Modding controllers is really fun. So I used to do the thing called pad hacking. Essentially, you can take apart a controller, any controller. You have this like fiberglass pen, and it rubs off the green layer of the PCB and exposes the pads. Then you solder a wire to that to a micro switch to an arcade stick. So I could make an arcade stick out of essentially any controller. And then I've done some fun stuff around that too. But
See, that sounds super fun for that one.
yeah, it's super simple. Like you can look at the PCB and see, oh, this is the ground, so this is the signal wire, and I just tap into this, and tap into this via, and yeah.
That's like taking a step further than what I'm usually used to doing, which is basically popping off controllers and replacing the face buttons so I get them to match up the way I like them.
And that's cool too.
I don't know why, but this popped into my head. In that 70s show, there is an episode in there about Kelso trying to mod a controller for Pong because he thinks Pong is too easy for him. And Red helps him because or else Kelso will break his stuff.
That's valid.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting there going, I think that's the only instance I know where modding a controller is a key point of the whole episode.
That's
Of
really cool.
anything.
I've never so the Atari controller, like the tennis or driving controller, the kind with like the
With
wheel in
the
it.
rotating
Yeah,
ball,
the
yeah.
turn style
That's
thing.
actually an optical controller. So
Really?
yeah, I never knew that either, but that's why those like always work. There's no like mechanical parts in there.
Oh,
So
I guess
Huh.
that would make sense then.
yeah, you don't really come across broken ones of those.
Yeah, the only time I ever came across any type of controller that was ever broken for Atari was when they released the it's that big SOB, the one that actually had the wheel, like the little ball in it that you would just like if you're playing like Arkanoid or something like that, you would just like swipe
Or you
your
need
left
that
or
giant
right.
trackball.
It had a
spin.
button on like each side and like a yellow
Yeah.
trackball in the middle. Like I've seen a lot of broken ones of those actually.
Yeah, I remember, I have very fond memories of that thing being busted because I was always at my grandma's house and I was just like, I want to play Arkanoid, but I can't because this thing just freaks out when I plug the controller in.
My cousin's got a MAME that he bought, and one of the key features he made sure it had so he could play the golf games was the ball right dead center. And it's like,
Genius.
everybody loves those and everyone forgets about them, it seems.
The ball tracking things? Or just the golf
yeah,
games?
like because they're the ball tracking games.
Yeah.
Because like there's not a lot of them that used it, but everyone remembers playing it.
What I mean,
Pizza
most-
It's so
places.
interesting, you know.
yeah. What were you gonna say, Dane? Sorry, buddy, I just cut you off there.
No, I said pizza places. They were all over
Dude,
pizza
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Memories
Well,
of Pizza Hut,
Germs
man.
on that ball.
And
So much grease.
Yeah.
Most like if you're like one of those people who like going into pubs every now and then too. So if you go to
Your local barcade.
your local
Yes.
barcade or like not even that though, like your standard pub, so they generally will have an arcade cabinet of sorry, I just
Top Golf.
Yep, Top
Top
Golf.
Golf.
That's the
Big
one.
Buck Hunter.
Big Buck Hunter. And you know the thing about those are
They
the
made
thing about-
money.
yeah, the thing about this is that there's money. They use controllers that you don't find at home. Top Golf still has that trackball. That's probably the only functioning arcade game at this point in time that I know that still has a trackball. And then of course Big Buck Hunter, which still uses the not so realistic looking shotgun anymore since they got in trouble for that.
Yeah, if you think about it, the trackball is probably the most robust. This thing's in bars and stuff. Like you
Yeah.
can't break that thing.
You can't slam it? No, it's a ball.
Yeah.
It just spins.
Yep.
I'm the type of psychopath that used to use a trackball for MOBAs.
I could believe
What?
that. I could believe that. I could actually see that.
I don't anymore, but I used to.
How?
I can see-
It's a track.
Like one of those mouse trackball things.
Yeah,
Or
I
like
had a
yeah.
trackball mouse.
yeah,
just-
yeah.
I can see that,
That
and
feels
I
weird
can
to
actually
me.
see. Well, no, but here's the thing. Like when Dane says that, I can see that being far more efficient than using an actual laser optic mouse because you'd be able to get more pinpoint accuracy with that with MOBAs.
I did all right.
Moving less. You're using
Yeah.
less
Yeah.
muscle to get
Mhm.
to where you need to go. So-
Yeah, you're adjusting your thumb here, and you already got it to where you needed to be. Yeah, I could see that being very efficient.
Yeah, it survived. I mean, decades of play, like just a lot of use. Speaking of ridiculous controllers and game setups, have you all seen I think it's two dudes out of China who played World of Tanks,
Yes.
who have retrofitted one of their rooms somewhere
Yes.
to be an immersive experience. Oh, it's crazy! Like the breach opens and the
Yep.
2-liter pops out, and
Yep.
they load a
And
new
they put in a new
2-liter,
2-liter bottle.
shove it in. I mean,
You should check out
Oh.
some of their other stuff they've done, Dane, too. Like they've done one for racing, where
Okay.
they actually got one where when the guy swings the wheel, he actually is on a track, like he's on a little cart. The cart actually spins with him.
sure, it's like too rich for my blood, right?
Yeah,
I'm never
yeah.
gonna be that guy. I'm not that guy who's gonna get one of those scorpion chairs where the viewer screen is right in my face. Like that's never gonna be me. but I love seeing people who go to that length to
Oh,
mod
yeah.
their stuff, because that's like that's their thing, you know. That's
Mhm.
one of the things that they love to do, and I think that's really kind of, you know, I've been a little quiet, just kind of listening to what you guys have seen. You have a little bit more experience in this side of things than I think I do, largely, but it's been really cool to hear like the passion in each of your voices for modding, and you know what that means to you. You know, saving, you know, whether it's saving technology that doesn't exist anymore, or sort of allowing it to be accessible to a new generation, or it's just something you love to do because you love the game and you want to continue to play it the way you feel like it should be played. And I think that's really kind of what, for me at least, modding comes down to, right? Is a passion, a love for gaming, and wanting to experience it in a way that is either exactly like you remembered it to be, or is completely different, right? In the World of Tanks scenario,
Yeah,
give
me my 2 liters.
Closest you can get to being in an actual tank, I would guess.
Oh, they're
without-
actually, you know, you say that, Dane, they actually did build an actual tank, or a frame of an actual tank where they actually have to like pop the top, jump in to do these things with. Like,
There are
I'll shoot you,
simulators like that.
I will shoot you all the videos of the stuff those guys have done, Dane.
Sure.
I think you will love them. It is absolutely brilliant.
I just think it's cool, you know. Like
Mhm.
they were like, "Yeah, what if we built a tank so we could play World of Tanks?" And someone was like, "Yo, you know, you could just play the game without that, right?" And they're like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
Could I?
I guess."
I could, but you know, it's cooler to, you know, have 2-liter bottles explode and then pop that
Yeah.
sucker out and then throw another one in. You know, think of it this way though. That's a great way to get a workout while you're playing a video game.
Fully immersive.
Yeah, make it like the Disneyland like Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Where everyone has to like work together and just like in the cockpit doing things.
Yep.
Yeah, but it'd be
yep.
like if they like lit fires that you had to put out in the Millennium Falcon, right? You know, your circuit board goes up and you have to run to get the fire extinguisher behind you.
Oh,
Sparks.
the worst part about that is like, man, that was such an interactive experience. Cool. I'm glad you guys had a good time. Shut it down. We need to get maintenance here.
It's like the Spider-Man cannon that malfunctioned.
Oh yeah.
The
happened.
what?
So at one of the Disney parks, they have a scene where a guy in a costume in a Spider-Man suit does flips and banters with the crowd. You know, he is Spider-Man for that day,
Right.
and then he does like a flip and ducks down behind an embankment, and then they have a Spider-Man dummy that then swings over a building and disappears. So it's like he's, you know, actually web slinging
Yeah.
there with you in the park. But the ride had a malfunction, and if I remember correctly, I think it just like cannonballed this Spider-Man dummy into the side of the wall or something. Like it missed. It was a whole thing. I saw a video of it a few months ago, but
I'm gonna have to look for that. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
All these traumatized kids. Like,
yeah, Spider-Man's fine, honey.
I desperately need this in multiple
I-
angles in 4K.
I have to see this. Yes, I have got to see this. Holy crap.
Man. But speaking of 4K, like I think the one thing we haven't touched of is when tech outpaces stuff. So there's like
Yeah.
a lot of so like when they built the NES, it was for a CRT. When they built the SNES, it was for a CRT. And I remember a hullabaloo when the Xbox came around, and all of a sudden, ones had to go to high def. But then there was versions that didn't high def, and then you decided one thing or another.
I just think I remember that actually because you and I encountered that when it wasn't the Xbox itself, but it was the Xbox 360. And the first game that we purchased for that you and I played that night
Was it Dead Rising?
It
Yeah,
was
Dead Rising. I've talked about
It
that
was-
on the show
It
before.
was Dead Rising. Yeah, I remember that when we did that. We literally did that. You know that one meme where they do the thing where the guy's like trying to read this really small fine print text. It's like, what the crap is this? It's like literally what it was like.
Oh,
watching
yeah,
that
I
on
remember
TV.
that.
Yep.
The thing is, the coding of the game, I guess, I don't know why it would do this, but if you're running it through the VGA, or pardon me, the RCA,
Mhm.
the text is actually smaller.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
played it on like a 32 CRT at the time. I didn't have like a flat screen when I played that game, and it was just impossible to me.
Back then, I got my hands on a high def TV. I did not get my hands on a flat screen, and that's why I wanted a flat screen, because a high def TV weighed like 400 pounds. I needed 2 people to help move it, and you nearly cracked the.
That's
the
how you
stand
know
for
all
it.
the def is there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got
dude.
all the def in that high
Is it
def.
because it's definitely heavy?
I appreciate what you did there. The dad in me is proud of that one.
I don't miss CRT.
Yeah, I'll be honest.
Not really.
I like
I-
the small ones.
Sure. Yeah.
12,
Portable,
8.
maybe
So-
with a handle.
Yeah,
in the back.
yeah.
Maybe a VCR built in. Maybe.
Mhm.
Hey, look, I have a little PBM right there.
Look at that old thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's fine. I could pick that up.
Well, that one's kind of heavy.
It is probably pretty heavy.
But I do
Yeah,
have
like-
the 8-inch PBM. and
Yeah,
it does
yeah,
have a
yeah.
handle.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's a perfect size.
Yeah.
By the way,
Delicate.
Dane, I see your video there. I'm going to check that out later. I also gave you one of the driving simulator I was talking about.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, so modding is honestly kind of a passion sport for that.
Agreed.
Dane's right with that. It's if you're modding something, it's usually out of like it's weird to say it this way. It's less out of some kind of sign of bad mojo, just more out of you love these games or things.
It's
that
a
you wanna do.
passion.
Yeah, it's a
It
passion
is,
project.
it is.
It's not to be nefarious.
There's some bad characters, right?
Yeah,
Like,
there's
people that
always
are
gonna
selling
be.
like the modded Xboxes and they'll mod your Wii and whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
but
I'll offer you a Game Boy for $400. That's a pretty good price, right?
depends on what mods are in there.
Yeah.
That's
You
true.
know?
That's true.
Well,
It's got
I
an
mean,
LCD screen. It's all full backlit, and oh, by the
I
way,
was-
it can boot everything.
I was just thinking of a refurbished system, a seller that is pretty infamous in this space. You know, has a Nintendo character, has a similar name to it. I think we all probably know who I'm referring to.
But for reasons we're not going to say.
But yeah, yep.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong. People should be paid for their time, right? I absolutely believe that. And this is, depending on what you're doing to it, right? But I do think, as you mentioned, there are some bad actors out there who, most people I think get into it for the passion of it. But there are some people in there who are like, oh, I can take this piece of crap 3DS and I can sell it for double the price because I've, wiped the dirt off of it and I've, or whatever.
yeah.
And obviously, I think that's a minority, which is a good thing. I think
Mhm.
for the
Salvaging. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so one of the most prolific things that I have ever had to repair are broken hinges on Nintendo DS Lites, right?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
can believe
Yep.
that.
So when I first found the Game Boy Advance macro mod, where you just put a little resistor in between 2 points on the motherboard, and then you can just use the bottom part as a Game Boy Advance, that
That's
just
sick.
brought new life. Like, all these broken systems can be just Game Boy Advances now.
Yeah.
It's just like
That's so
salvaging
cool.
instead of going to a dump.
Mhm.
Someone can
Yeah.
enjoy it.
That's actually pretty cool.
It doesn't
it's
have any
always
more
fun.
DS,
Yeah.
functionality, but the DS and the DS Lite were perfect Game Boy Advances with TFT backlit screen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they did have the best. They did have the best picture for that too. Honestly, like that backlit screen.
I'd remove the touch screen so it'd give it a clear picture, just be glass.
Yep.
It's always fun to go to a show and see like different versions and takes on how the Game Boy macro was done by whoever did the mod.
So I stopped doing them because the hardest part was the case.
Yep.
So like you'd have to use like a putty to fill in all the holes, but I wanted to have the green LED light still show through. So sanding that down with everything and then primering it, painting it. I even went so far as remapping the buttons. So I did it like Nintendo style, where I changed the B and the A to the X and the Y locations.
Oh, that's sick.
And then I'd have to fill in the other holes, and then so you have to
Rinse and
modify
repeat.
the backs so the buttons will actually fit, because there's these slots on the back of them that are key to each unique button. And
Yeah,
there's a lot to it. But
that
it's
is
really
awesome.
fun. Yeah.
See, for me, it sounds to me like you're bigger, like you're a big modder on the hardware side of things. Like I myself, I'm a big modder on the software side of things. Like
Yes.
yeah,
So after my whole, like I did all the like PSP soft modding, and I
Oh,
did
yeah.
that for a couple of customers too, but it was really for myself. It was
Right.
for like exploration, like, oh my god, I can play every game,
Yup.
But then I'd talk about it to people, and they're like, you do to me? Like, sure, I suppose I could. And it got out of control.
Yeah.
But where was I getting at with this? Ever since then, Wii's came out.
Mhm.
It's so easy to soft mod. Xboxes became soft moddable with whatever those
Mhm.
discs like Mechasol or whatever 2.
Yep.
And Splinter Cell. I didn't look into any of that. I didn't do any of that. I just stopped doing any sort of software modding because I don't know if I was like punishing myself or whatever. I didn't even do it for myself. Like I would go and pay someone else to give me a modded Xbox so I
Mhm.
could have all those games and just experience it. Um, it's the fast the it's the fun part for me was doing new mods, like the hardware mods, and like let's figure out if I can figure this out. Like especially if it was like uncharted territory or something, maybe I could remap these buttons, or maybe I could add this RGB amp and
Mhm.
improve the picture a little bit, or. So that's the stuff that fascinates me. Even with no education in this, just picking stuff up, talking to people that are way smarter with educations than me,
Yep.
giving me tips. I'm doing repairs there in the store, and some guy comes in and says, "Oh, hey, if you do this," and this," I'm like, "Wow, thanks, man." It just, that's the fun part. And so, yeah, software modding, I'm still pretty clueless to it all. Like, I can do it. I can follow instructions in the game space. It, it's like I want to respect the games more and not do that and not provide any more of this software modding into the world.
The
I would
only
agree with
reason
you
I
on that.
even do that, like I do software modding for a lot of stuff. Particularly, I've recently I did one of my PS3s specifically so I could have an easy way to play all my PS1 titles.
Yep.
So I converted all of them to PS1 classic injected files and installed them. So my entire library is also digital on this other PS3.
And I mean, I think that's a lot of what it is, though, too, because like I look at modding as a great way of preservation. Um, a lot of people, obviously, people are gonna like. There are gonna be some people out there who will roll their eyes up and then make a stink face at it, but they don't understand that, you know, when the technology is there for you to do it, and you're not doing it for illegal reasons, you're literally doing it. It's like for me, I have a like Leo. You see my collection of stuff. Like I have a ton of games. And I'm also a lazy bastard who doesn't like getting up and swapping out my games. I want to play my game. I want to just hit a quick reset button and play my game. And that's a lot of what I did because it's like I actually have I have an SNES Mini. I modded it so I could add a bunch of the Super Nintendo games on there that I could at the time. Yep. I have a Sega Genesis Mini, Sega Genesis Mini 1 and Mini 2, modded both of them. I don't know why. I mean, there was almost no need to do that since, they both were basically the same hardware, just one had more games, but it's just literally paying for the shell, but I'm crazy about stuff like that. And I mean, like when you talk like modding, like a lot of people don't understand, and there's a lot of people who do understand. So it's kind of like a two-way street on this one, that the preservation is the biggest key to all of it. Modding is a thing because it's all about preservation. Some people would like to mod because they like to see what they could do with it, like Danny, what you like to do with like what you used to do with your hardware, to see how you can make it tick, how this thing, how far you can push it. And then for some others, it's just straight up just like, I like the comfortability of like I can quickly hit start and select on my controller, reset the thing, go to choose another game. I don't have to get up and do a damn thing for it. And it's everyone's got their flavors for why they do it, but not everyone understands that it's all coming from the same point of view. You're doing it because it's a passion. You
Yeah,
love
I,
it.
I get it. So there's a lot of people that think you shouldn't be modding original hardware, right? And so
Correct.
you can buy really good looking copies of like housings, and this glass isn't original. I had to put a new one on there, and you can get buttons that look exactly the same.
Yep.
Things need to be played, right? Like I'll do AV mods, RCA mods to Atari 2600s so people can play them and enjoy them.
Yep.
So like if you get to a point like you're a collector, you're collecting, there's plenty of stuff out there for you to do that. There's also a bunch of people that, should play stuff. That's why all these like mini consoles became so prolific, because at the end of the day, people just need exposure to this stuff. And
Yeah.
so that's what a lot of this stuff is. Like, no one wants to sit there and play on a Game Boy with a worm light or under a lamp with the
Right.
glare the whole time. Like, we did that. We played
Kids
that.
today
We
are
played in
spoiled,
dim
Play
man.
it, but
cars at street lights and stuff, but
yeah.
we suffered that so future generations can have a nice screen that's backlit and won't damage their eyesight. That's
Yep.
how I feel. And like, the, it, I've for all the hundreds of things I've modded, the thousands of things I've repaired, it's still like a drop in the bucket for what's out there. So like I say, I understand people's point of view, oh, you should keep it original. I'm like, that's fine for you. But like, yeah, there's this whole like pie in the sky thing for me, like, because I had this store. I've that was my favorite thing. It's helping customers, connecting them with the game. That they come back a couple weeks later saying, "Oh my god, it was the best thing ever," or whatever,
Yep.
like young and old, and so it's like the Good Samaritan thing. Like, please, I know it's $200 for this modded Game Boy, but it's got this, the circuitry that's gonna last far longer than the original one, and like it's this whole new board and this screen that will not die on you.
You're getting your money's worth out of it when you properly.
Sure,
Absolutely.
and it's
properly
hard to
mod it.
convince it to some people. I just
Sure.
want a Game Boy, like,
Yep.
okay, you can get this Game Boy Advance SP or whatever.
we have a local game store here that is a couple of local game stores here, but one of them actually does do modifications to certain hardwares here. I remember walking in and I seen this too, and this actually got me piqued. It got me my curiosity going to where I started talking to the owner of the store, and what really got me interested in this was seeing a GameCube that they had modded to where they added an HDMI adapter to the back of it. It's actually homebrewed too, so it's like we're talking like mod. It's full blown software and hardware. But when I watched him pop in Star Fox Adventure, that's the one. The not Zelda's the not Zelda clone, quote unquote.
The not Zelda.
The one with the hot fox, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Dinosaur Planet. Yeah, it's Dinosaur Planet.
Yeah, Dinosaur Planet. Thank you. Dinosaur Planet. Yeah. When I watched him pop that in though, and I was looking at that, I was looking at that. I'm going like, my God, the graphics on that are actually like. Did GameCube always have games that looked that good? And guys, like, actually, yeah, they always did, but because the technology, and this is Leo, this is kind of one of those things we were talking about. It's like where the hardware got ahead of itself.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those things where it's like the GameCube games actually have some of the crispest graphics you'll ever see, but because the hardware was very limited on what it could do. So it's like if you see like somebody who emulates a GameCube game, you look at it, it's like, damn, that game's actually really good looking. Like Skies of Arcadia, great example. I've got it. I modded my Steam Deck since I have Skies of Arcadia, and I did the legitimate thing of dumping it. Thank you very much. I actually loaded it up on my Steam Deck so I could check it out, see what it looked like with HD graphics on that. And when I say HD graphics, I mean like just it cleans up the pixelization, sharpens
It's basically
some of the edges.
a homebrewed remaster.
Homebrewed remaster, essentially. And I was looking at that, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, this was a game that was 100% ahead of its time. And graphically wise, this is another reason why I love modded stuff. It's because graphically wise, you get to see how good a game truly can look when it's done correctly. Now, this doesn't apply to all games. There's a lot of games out there where, like, if you clean it up too much, it looks like ass. I'm going to point it to any one of the Final Fantasies from back in the day. If you put any one of those from the CRT days when they still needed the scan lines to help cover a lot of that stuff, and you brought them to today's, they don't look as good. That's why the pixel remasters
You need
had
that
to happen.
anti-aliasing.
Yep.
I love the blurriness to
Yep.
soften everything.
Basically built-in smoothing.
So that the GameCube is actually in that golden, Goldilocks era where people were still playing it on CRT, but some people had HD, and so
Yep.
there was a component cable, right? And that's really expensive now, and then they
Oh,
took that
yeah.
TV port out, but the capability was there, and that's why we have HDMI.
Yeah. And that was the thing too. It's like 'cause I got to talking about that. I have two GameCubes. One that I have that religiously does not get touched for anything other than just playing it the traditional way, and the other one that, as I'm waiting for the Pico motherboard to become available, I plan on actually cracking that sucker open and seeing what I can do with it. Because it's a good time to start testing my soldering skills since I've been practicing with soldering.
Danny was talking about earlier. I think it's really interesting to see, like, from a storytelling perspective, right? All these old games that are no longer available or not commercially available, shall we say.
Yep.
Not me because I'm a good boy, but I had a friend who absolutely downloaded a number of, like, say the Fire Emblem games that hadn't seen a re-release in a while and that were retailing for like $200 to $400. And even though he owns them on the GameCube and the Wii, the original hardware, uh, it wasn't worth it to him to pull those out, dust them off, plug them back in, and play them as they were originally intended. And we're seeing some of those games come back, but without doing these unscrupulous methods, which I would never do. I do think that those stories would be, in a sense, lost to us.
Agreed.
I remember as a kid, Ike's Fire Emblem game story resonated with me from a very young age, and I loved his story, and I liked seeing him grow up, and I liked the sequel that came after. And there's a number of people I know who are now new to Fire Emblem, where I'm like, man, I wish you could play this game like
Yeah.
the way that I wish you could go buy a copy of it or whatever. And I mean, obviously some of these things are being changed with emulation and with legal emulation. I'm putting that in quotes for the audio listeners, because I think that emulation in general is typically fine, but
I would agree with you.
these companies are doing legal emulation or whatever you want to call it, where they're basically selling you a service so that you can play these games digitally. But I think that's great, because without people saving these files, there's a number of people out there, a number of services, a number of groups who are trying to save the history of these games and their stories, the hardware that they play on. And I think that's incredible, honestly. The reconstruction efforts are huge out there, and without them, these stories would be lost, and that's a tragedy, because there are some great games out there that some people have never experienced because they lack hardware accessibility, they lack game accessibility and what have you. So I think it's really cool that you're like, yeah, I just wanted these people to experience this and to have fun and be like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever, and you're like, I know, that's what I was saying.
Another note on that, another thing I love is fan subs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you can play
Fan
these Japanese
translations,
games, fan translations, like ROM translations or whatever. But there's a ton of great games out there that you can now play in English.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh man,
It's
Soccer
and-
Wars 2
right?
just got a fan patch.
Yeah,
right,
Soccer
3
Wars
days
2.
ago.
Yep.
Well, we got
Just
some of
play
our
Sweet
like
Home,
beloved
Yeah.
games because one person started doing a fan translation, and a company was like, hey, you're already halfway done, do you just want to finish this for us and then we'll release it?
we needed
that's
more of
happened.
that. We
I
needed more
agree.
Victor Ireland's with
Yes.
That actually, you actually say that, Dane. It actually does. That is actually a case in point where that did actually happen. Was
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the Japanese name for it, but it was basically Legend of Heroes, the Trails of Azure,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yup.
Trails of Zero had fan subs going for it. The fan subs were so spot on that Falcom JDK reached out to the translators and asked them if they would be okay with selling the script to them, so they could just release it and make it a commercial release in America because of how well they did. These guys got paid incredibly well for the scripts.
And I bet they saved money.
They
There's
did.
probably
Yeah.
a deal buying that script.
Yeah,
So-
Money
because
and
the
time
passion was
saved.
because the passion was there. And it's because basically original way that you would have to do this, and I know about this because I actually was about to do this before I found out they had that Falcon the team Falcon had bought the script, was that you would have to pay these guys for the script, and they were only charging $10 for it, which is, I mean, honestly, for a game like that, $10 for a script of an RPG that is super in depth,
Where
anything
every
Legend of
character has
Heroes.
3 different lines at every time of day.
Yeah,
Jesus.
not a single character in that game is not for boys. They all have lines, and I love that. But the fact that they all had that $10 for that was super generous. The hard part would have been buying the Japanese version of the game and then getting yourself a launcher that can launch it on the English platform for Windows, and then you would have just done that. But then, like I said, the fact that Falcom stepped in and saw this was like, hey, we've been actually wanting to get these games out stateside anyways, so that way we can complete the series, because we had 1 through 3 out on the PSP, got re-released on the PC. Then they skipped 4 and 5, which is Trails of Zero and Trails of Azure, and they went straight to Cold Steel. And I mean, yeah, so they're like, we need to bridge this gap and we need to get it there. But these guys just did the work for us, and they're just going to save us so much time. Let's just pay them a handsome amount, ask them for permission, put it in there, boom, done, move on. And that sort of a thing is what people don't understand is if you got a passion for it, you can easily turn a good dollar out of this and make an honest living by just doing what you believe is right. And for these guys, it was providing a script to a game, to a series they love, and they wanted to share it with everyone.
Yeah, it's kind of lucky though that the publisher was looking to pursue like
Yeah.
actually releasing it though,
Yes.
because there's a lot of these too that are like,
Well, they'll just shut it down, 100%. Like, nope,
Yeah.
turn that shit off.
Yeah,
So-
it's an example of don't show me your cool stuff because legally I'll have to stop your cool stuff.
Yep.
Or shut it down so we can just start doing this on our own.
I know.
Which, I guess gets the same end result.
To an extent. I mean, I remember when there was Streets of Rage 2 had got a mod for it. I can't remember what it was, what the name of the mod was, but basically, you know what I'm talking about, where it ended up being this long, like, additional characters got added in. They added more story to it. And
So we're
or
talking
maybe
about
it was-
hacks at this point.
yeah, but it's still,
Yeah.
hack's still a mod, though. They're still modding the
Yeah.
software. They're still adding to it.
True.
You wouldn't
So-
mod a car.
Yes, I
yeah, we
would.
would. There's a
Yeah, I
whole-
would.
there's a
I would
whole-
absolutely slap a freaking spoiler on my RAV. Don't think for 2 seconds I won't do it.
I'm just saying, Fast and Furious is a whole movie series about modern cars.
You wouldn't mod a house.
I thought Fast and Furious was a whole series about family.
Yeah, it's about family.
Family modern
That's
cars.
the underlying.
You wouldn't mod a family.
I live my life one family at a time.
But I mean, like, but that's one of those situations too, where it's like where this guy was like constantly adding to this, and this was right before Streets of Rage 4 was about to come out. Sega had reached out to him and gave him a cease and desist because it was like one of those like, hey, we got a new Streets of Rage coming out. We really don't want you taking away from that, so stop your stuff.
So I want to talk about hacks and homebrews and such real quick before we end this episode.
Okay.
Because they're basically mods, but for software side on that. Sometimes some mods will be there just to extend the game. Other people do mods for the passion. Other people do mods to some crazy extents on that. One of the weirdest, one of the bigger ones I know of is the mod for, I think it's for Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, called A Tale of Two Fallouts. And it modded and connected, you start your game in Fallout 3 and then you end up in New Vegas.
Okay,
what
it
is
makes
that,
it
like
one big
200-hour
connection for you.
game?
Yeah, I need the
Good
200.
Lord.
This is Nibblestar's thing. I don't want to get up and have to get a note and put the new disc in. No, I want a 200-hour plus game.
I mean, if it's Fallout, I probably
Mm.
would actually think about that much into it, though. To be real
Sounds
with you.
about right.
I probably would.
But like other games have different things like that. Civilization 4 has a mod in it that turns Civ 4 into an RPG. Then you also have one of my favorite mods, which is in the Steam Workshop, actually, for XCOM 2. And there's a new version on it for the XCOM 2 with the expansion pack for that, which mods it to be an even longer, tougher, and strong and cooler game to deal with, because you even have new mechanics. Like, they've revamped the entire game for that one. It's called Long War, and it turns
Yeah,
it
what
from the regular XCOM game to, like, we kicked this up to 11.
Yeah,
We
when I
didn't
think
have
of
no limit. We
XCOM
had to
2,
put
I
it in.
think of this game needs to be harder and have more random bullshit in it. That's 100%
Yeah, I remember
what
it being
think.
pretty hard to begin with.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say, man, does XCOM
Oh,
need to
90
be any harder?
98% chance to hit. I'm fine.
I mean,
Misses
I
6
get
out of 7 shots.
yeah, that too.
people like punishment.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
98%
Dark
98%
Souls is
chance
the
that
I
thing.
played
you
Dark
hit
Souls.
2%.
I platinum Dark Souls.
Oh my god! Don't get me started.
god.
Did you guys?
Sekiro almost made me quit gaming. I eventually went back to it, but God, I was so ready to be done.
So, Dane,
Yeah.
Brandon, like, did you guys see my post I made about Dark Souls recently?
Did I miss this? Oh no.
Like, I 100%ed Elden Ring in the DLC, but I couldn't do Sekiro, man. That
So
thing
I was
kills
playing
me.
Dark Souls 3. I was like, the kind of going on a little tangent here, so I apologize. But I fucking
Parries.
love Sekiro too. But I was playing Dark Souls 3. I
Garbage
have
game.
never beaten Dark Souls 3. Like, I've beaten all the Dark Souls. I've beaten Elden Ring. I've beaten Elden Ring's DLC. I've beaten Sekiro. I've never beaten Dark Souls 3. And do you want to know why? It is the stupidest reason possible. It is because of the fact that when I put down Dark Souls 3 and then I don't pick it up for a while, I end up like I'm a creature of habit. I like to clean up my hard drives from time to time, and you can already see where this is going.
No.
And because I have this on Steam, and because Steam does not do cloud saves with Dark Souls 3 for some godforsaken reason, I don't understand as to why. I have legitimately restarted Dark Souls 3 17 times now at this point. Yes, I'm actually counting because I started like, all right, I'm serious. How many times have I done this? And recently I was actually playing through it, but then I had put a new processor and a new GPU in my computer. And when you do that, it's like, sure, you don't have to format your hard drive, but it is advised, you know, so that way it kind of helps sync everything up better. I did that
because Windows will say you don't own this. What?
It's exactly what it did. I forgot to back up the game again, and I'm actually legitimately mad about this because I actually got past the dance of Boreal Valley, which you know, that's a hard as fuck fight.
But if you do it once, you could do it again.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer of the Church of Bonk. So I will grab the big stick and just use that because I love the big stick in that game. It's literally called the Big Club. It's all it is. But it's I use the big club in that. But it's like every time I fight her, I just come back there with even more anger because I'm already mad that I've had to go through the game at this point. I've had to restart 16 times, now 17 times. Can we just have a mod for that where Bandai Namco won't ban me so I can beat the game?
The fact that you're two new playthroughs away from playing that game as many times as I've bought Final Fantasy VII is terrifying to me, Nibblesnarf.
I just love the idea of that Nibblesnarf in his office is all of a sudden has like this checkbox board and it's just like got 16 ticks. He's like, all right, back to the
Chuck, what up?
He's got the list.
Get
Games
the old
to
pen.
kill.
Yeah,
He just needs to check that one off.
Yeah. Oh, dude. And then, like the funniest part about this too is like when that whole thing, when I realized, because I stream from my Steam Deck I stream from my PC to my Steam Deck because you know it's wonderful. I love doing that. I realized very quickly that I didn't have the save file when I launched it, and I saw a new game without continue. And my wife's talking to me at this time, and I'm just like, my mind's just going like, wait a minute here. Something's wrong. No. Did I? No. My wife goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm about to play some Dark Souls 3. She goes, oh, you're going to torture yourself. I'm like, yes. She goes like, what? Why do you have this look of disdain on your face? I'm like, I think I forgot to I think I forgot to back up my save.
Honey, get the marker.
Yeah, but because I didn't start the game right away, the opening cutscene started, and like after I said that, the game speaks up, and the old lady goes, "Yes, indeed." I'm like, "Fuck you, game! Don't you give me your sass right now!"
So
It's like,
it's very similar to the reason why I never finished The Last of Us. I bought it day one, 7 a.m.
The first one?
Yes, on PS3.
Really?
Took it home, put it in, played it for like 6 hours straight, 7 hours straight, nonstop, just immediately. And when I was like, okay, I need to like take a break, so I'm gonna save the game. And I pause it, and the save game and load game options were grayed out. And then I look down and it says auto saving. If you were connected to the PSN within the first hour, so from 7 to 8, it locked up the game and would trigger a fail-safe on it to just get stuck in a loop in the autosave.
no.
And when it was auto-saving, it wouldn't let you load or save.
This is what you get for being a morning person.
And
This is your
believe me, man, I'm
punishment.
not.
This is your
So-
punishment.
Yeah, you said the words up at 7 a.m. and I was like,
I know.
no. Like,
Well, yeah, I hear that too. Like I have to do that for my
What?
job, but no, man.
Yeah.
This is when you could go to a store and pick up something on day one like that.
sure.
But
I'll
so
see you
I'm
at
like, what
10.
the hell's going on? So I quickly
Midnight release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you
So I
play
go
it
on
until 7 a.m. and then go to sleep.
Yep, exactly.
That's the proper thing as cryptid should do when we do that. Not wake up to 7 a.m. to play a game.
Damn daywalkers ruling the world.
Look, I'll
Freaking
put it this way: I have not done that since for reasons. This may or may not be one of them.
But that's it. You never went back.
Those got
through it?
remastered and stuff too.
Like I've played through it multiple times.
But here,
Okay.
my issue was like, I want
The
an
memory's
uninterrupted experience.
ingrained.
you know?
Sure.
It's got that stink of poo poo. I get it.
Oh,
It
Yeah.
was
So good.
7 hours I'd have to replay immediately. And that's where it was a problem for me. It's like, I literally just did all this, and now I have to do it all again, and it's the same day.
Yeah, it's so
Fuck
good.
this.
It's so
And I
good.
turned it
You
off.
had a
and I
very
never
similar
touched it again.
experience, Leo.
It's
you
so
don't get to
good,
criticize him
though.
because you had a very similar experience, Leo.
It's
Oh, no, I'm
so
gonna criticize.
good.
Yeah, no, but it's right. It's super good. But then, it still will have that stench, that smell of this
It's-
aroma of not saving.
It's
Look,
worth
two
it.
more re-releases from now, and I'll probably be okay to play it.
It's
Oh, yeah.
worth it. Do it. Play that
Yeah, yeah.
game. It's so good.
PC, PS4,
it is.
PS5.
Get a PS5.
Like, which version? Or do I go back and try the PS3?
They just
I wouldn't
re-released
do
it
that one. I
again.
wouldn't do
so
that
just
one.
get-
I wouldn't do
just
that
get the
one.
Just get the most recent release of it again, because for some reason we need to re-release the same game 5 damn times within a
Whoa.
5-year span.
You don't
Yeah,
talk about Skyrim like that.
Yeah.
No, see, first off, that's Skyrim is 7 times in a 10-year span. Thank you very much. They did slow down after the Switch came out. Okay?
Also, I mean, that is a thing that happens. Okay, before it was Last of Us, it was Skyrim. Before Skyrim, it was
Street Fighter 2 and Mortal
Street Fighter
Kombat.
2 at some point. Before Street Fighter 2, we said Doom. Where else could you get Doom?
We still have Doom. We can play on a pregnancy test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dude,
you can mod Doom in your pregnancy test.
Limited Run Games is releasing has a collector's edition called the Will It Run Edition, and it's a freaking box.
I want to get that.
I want that. I do think
Oh,
that.
can I tell a Skyrim story? It's
Yeah,
applicable?
still Skyrim story.
So, I've never beaten Skyrim. I got about
Fair.
40 hours into it and loved the experience I had. I was sharing an Xbox with my girlfriend, and I had the first save slot because I started the game first. She had the second save slot. No big deal, right? And I got woken up at 3 a.m. This is a couple of weeks after release. I'd played like 40 hours, and she was like, "Hey, so I may have saved over your slot." And I was like, "What?" Because I was like passed out.
Yeah, fair. Not a morning person.
She was like, "Yeah, I don't know. Could you check it?" So I got up and I checked it, and yeah, I lost about 20 hours to that. And I was like,
She thought to wake you up. And
She
not
felt
let
so
you sleep,
bad.
till the next day to break.
she felt so bad. Like,
Yeah, I get that. That's a Band-Aid rip. Just
yeah.
do it.
And like, honestly, I don't care. It's a funny story now, and like,
Yeah.
Skyrim's great, but I just remember like putting the controller down and just leaving. I mean, not leaving physically, but like, I never went back to Skyrim land. And like, it's a great game. It's been released 18 times for a reason.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
In terms of wasted time, I think I've got all that beat.
it's not
Like,
bad.
yes, one day I deleted my 60+ hours of Fallout 4,
Oof.
but I used to
Oof.
play Final Fantasy 11,
Oh
which
yeah.
is the MMORPG.
I know what you're talking about.
I was a samurai man. Let's go.
Okay. Oh, hey!
Yeah.
Monk
All
main.
right.
Ah,
Ninja
yeah.
Warrior. Ninja Warrior.
And,
champ.
Okay,
and,
okay.
and I should say Rune Fencer main as well, because I was one of those ones who actually liked the Rune Fencer.
You're a
It's some of my
monster.
fondest memories in video game, right?
Yeah.
So I started on a PS2 with the hard drive and everything.
Oh yeah.
So I played on a console. And what happened to
Yep.
me constantly was I would zone into an area, get a party together, play for hours and hours, level up, and then go back. But during that time, like my console would freeze, my screen would freeze, like my everything would freeze, but my character could still walk around, and then my little like the thing in the corner would tick down. It was like the latency or whatever counter.
Like the ping or
And
whatever.
then
Yeah.
when I would restart the game, it would be back at the zone, and it would be like the 2-3 hours of leveling up never happened.
No.
This happened for months until one day, my party, we exchanged a bunch of food and items to go, and then we zone in, and then we're doing, the normal thing. 2 hours later, my console does that again. I zone back in, and it's like all the trades never happened. So I duplicated everything that
Yo.
was given to me because I so did with it. So, oh, boom, light bulb. We started duplicating all the rare armors, all the
Yeah.
like weapons that weren't, rare X, anything we could, even money, gil. They would
I was
give
gonna
me
say,
all the gil for the whole fucking guild. And and then we'd play, but it wouldn't always happen. So there'd be some nights like, it didn't happen. I just leveled up 5 times. Oh, okay, here's all your stuff back. But I swear, hundreds of hours were lost. But I just kept playing because this is this MMO. Like,
It was
Yeah.
a
then
good game.
once we figured the dupe trick out,
It was an
I was
okay
in
game,
the
I would say.
Odin server, so I single-handedly
Hmm.
killed the economy of that server.
You're a monster.
Yeah. The truth can come out. This is documented now. It was me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Serious.
We now know who it was. 'Cause I remember hearing about the duplication bug with the PS2 because that was a known bug.
All right, boys, take him away. We got
Right.
you. You sick son of a bitch. You're going away for a long time.
Yeah.
Sting operation.
Oh, I think I came from Leviathan.
We were on
merged
Leviathan,
into
Leo.
Odin.
Probably a big one in at least the Switch stream has been people who have been playing randomizers and such for. I know Pokemon's got a randomizer.
Nuzlocke PP. Let's go.
Wait, so can you randomize a Nuzlocke? Oh,
Oh,
that
yeah.
sounds a mess and a half.
Best
Oh, it
worst
is.
decision I ever made was to do a randomized Nuzlocke of Emerald. And for those of you who don't know, Emerald is pretty notorious for being one of, if not the hardest.
it's a harder one.
That's the
Mm,
one. I thought that was like
Emerald,
the
yeah.
hardest one of them all.
It is, but Rayquaza's my boy. Well,
Yeah.
Shiny Rayquaza's my boy, so,
Mhm.
you know.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
when we talk like randomizers too, like this is one of the reasons why I love randomizers is I love competitions with randomizers, especially when they all use the same seed and they all have a different way to go about this. And for me, it's Super Metroid. Super Metroid randomizers are, especially when they're racing contests, are some of the greatest things to watch because you're just like, like some guy might go towards Brinstar, some guy might go towards Norfair, and it's just like you're not sure who's really gonna win because it's just so random, and I love that sort of thing. But
Speedrunning has brought a whole new element back to games. I love it. You can
Oh,
take
yeah.
any game and turn it into a speed run, and then just get a
yes,
bunch of
I
people on it.
agree.
I mean, that's what old school gaming was, though, too, when you think about it. I mean, your score a lot of the time was based on your completion time. So it was only natural that as the game mechanics got away from that the players would eventually find a way to work it in.
Yep.
Have you guys heard of Mugen Special or whatever?
Yes.
Mugen Fighter, or like, where it's got all the different
Salty
characters.
bets, man.
Or
I was gonna
Salty
say,
Bet.
Salty Bet.
Salty
That's
Bets
what I was
is
thinking
like-
of.
Salty Bets is still going. Like I
Yeah.
actually like to throw it
Stop.
up every now and then just to watch it.
Yeah, just put it on the background. It's the greatest
Yeah.
thing.
You'll never get caught up.
That's what I was
It's
thinking.
worse than One Piece.
These characters in it.
There are several
there's
One
so
Piece
many
characters
versions
actually.
of that. Mugen, for those who know, is basically a modded fighting game. It's been modded so much.
Yeah,
With
it's like if you
whatever in
want to
there.
play Street Fighter characters against Mortal Kombat characters.
It's basically just, this is an engine. Here you go.
Yeah, it's the engine actually heavily based off of Marvel vs. Capcom. So that's actually the engine that's closest described to it, which allows the most flexibility, allows for a lot of sprite animation. But yeah, no, and like that, you want to talk modding though? Like that game is king of software modding.
Yeah, and people aren't doing that for like monetary gain. You know what I
No,
mean? Like
it's-
this is for the love of it too.
They just
So
love
that's-
doing
I
it.
like- Yeah,
Or they want to make a
You know,
troll
people that are
character.
importing the sprites and stuff.
Or in some
Those kind
cases,
of-
people making original new sprite animations
Yeah,
for this
Yeah.
character. Like,
Just
people
to
learning
test their
assembly
character out.
language.
Yep.
like-
I
This kind
love
of
the fact.
remind
I
me,
love
in
it.
Tabletop Sim, there's a game called God Game, which is all fan made as well. There's a bunch of different downloaded packs you can buy for it that puts other different characters. But that's basically what it is. Somebody made a card game in Tabletop Sim that has a bunch of different random pop culture references, right? And I mean, I think it's a team of people, but kind of similar to Mugen, where it's like somebody was like, "Oh, I want to have a card game with Phineas and Ferb in it, but I also want to have Danganronpa characters." Like,
That's cool.
what
yeah,
a
it's
crossover.
actually it's really complicated, really complex. I had a buddy show it to me, and it does help to have somebody who's played the game before to kind of lead you through it. But like it's a fun little game. It's kind of similar to Magic the Gathering in some ways. It's kind of similar to other like trading card games, but it's all for free. And this, somebody built this inside Tabletop Sim, so it's just modding a game inside of a game.
I need a game inside my
reskinning.
game. Speaking of which, what is it? I know in the Portland retro area, game area, there is so many mods and such, and for Intellivision of all things.
Yeah.
There's like
actually-
a community of people who are modding and creating games for Intellivision, Atari, and I think the NES. Like they're still making some stuff for the NES.
I can see
Yeah, like brand new games.
Yeah.
That's still alive and well. I mean, if you guys remember Nintendo Age at all, like there were a bunch of games that came out of there. They do like their Christmas specials and stuff.
Mhm.
I do, yeah.
I miss that place.
Yeah. I think that is all I've got going on for mods. So, like, there's always going to be bad actors for mods and mod things that are out there. That's just sort of the nature of the game. But for the most part, most people do it for the passion than anything else. They want to do it because of the love for the game, like literally. Or in some cases, preservation, because they love the game so much they want to experience the original way it's played, or just to make sure it doesn't go away. And we've seen this in other medias where things just sort of die out and go away. Books, radios, shows, television shows, movies. Like people are still hunting around for like the original Doctor Who stuff because most of that's gone in a fire. And so video games are kind of unique because they are programmed for it. And so if somebody has it, they came in so late in the media game, because video games, like we've explored, have been their bigger heydays in the 70s or 80s, which means all the ones who had lost media for different things, we kind of learned not to do that.
Just as a quick aside, but it's about lost media, so it's sort of topical. Somebody found the lost Invincible adaptations from MTV. MTV did sort of like stop motion comics, basically. So it wasn't like tree animation like you would see on
animatics.
now. Yeah, animatics. That's a great word for it. And it was lost media, but somebody found it on an iPad Touch that they had. So we got it back. You know,
We're good. Got it back.
Yeah, I was reading an article about it the other day. But like you said, a lot of these newer forms of technology, we do lose some of them if we're not careful, if we don't preserve them, and then we have to kind of be like, hey, anyone have this like on a hard drive somewhere, like, or just an iPod Touch maybe,
Like somebody, like I had a game it was a terrible game, but I still had it, and then I got a message from a friend of a friend who's like, hey, do you still have this old game for the to put into an archive system that somebody was making? My first question was, why? It wasn't that good. But he's like, it's just an archive. All right, and I'll put it up there because I forgot to delete it, so I gave it to them, and they were good to. They were good to go. Got the coding in, so that's still preserved.
And let's face it, the world would be boring if we had access to everything.
True.
We got to leave some mystery.
I got a history background, and I'm still bemoaning the Library of Alexandria, right? Where it's like
it's all under the Vatican, right?
Oh,
It's
that's
supposed to
true.
be all under the
That's-
Vatican.
that's
Yeah, the one place that
rumor,
no one's
right?
allowed to go ever for any reason
Right.
whatsoever because
Yeah.
bite me.
Just like the national treasures of Japan are absolutely in that box. Don't question it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Even though they were supposedly lost, but then found later on, so that's cool.
But no one can see them.
No, you can't see them.
Your
But
eyes
they're
will
in there.
burn them.
I promise.
Well, there's some truth to that Schrodinger's thing, like
Yeah.
like the double slit experiment. Things are only there when being observed.
No.
For a slightly more hilarious version of that, see back season 1, episode 2 about the Asamude sword. There is a bit Dane has in there, which is just, I go back to listen to that each time.
I appreciate that.
No problem. Outside of that, I think that is about it. If you do mods and are in modding, hit us up. Give us a message of a type of mod or even a type of modification, digital hardware or such, that you really liked or enjoyed? I know a modification that started out as just a fun thing in Portland, which was a game of Joust, and now it's a 6-player. What was it? It's a 6-player Joust like like arena.
Yes, thank you. It's the Queen.
The Queen, yeah, and it is
Or Queen Bee or
amazing to
something
play.
wrong.
Black Queen, I think.
Yes, I think that's it.
They
There's
have it at
Queen
local
and a
arcade.
color and bees, maybe.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
find it.
You know, that's like a
Mm.
joust.
Yeah, but it's like Joust, and it started off as somebody wanting to reprogram Joust, make it work. How about we put 4 players instead of its normal 2? Cool, we'll keep going. 5? All right. Why 5? Why not? You shut your mouth. That's what we're gonna do it.
6, you say? You got it.
You got it. As long as we don't have to connect it to another arcade cabinet. Hey, buddy, guess what I want to do? Connect it to another arcade cabinet. And now there's competitions for that in Portland. It was one of the funnest things to do when like go to PRG is like, I gotta get a couple rounds in this sucker.
Or if you find a room where they have like a 12-player Bomberman set up. 'Cause when are
Yes.
you gonna do that? You know?
Yeah.
PRG is really the only place.
Hey, you know what? 16-player Faceball.
Oh my God, 16-player Faceball. I loved Faceball too. You're talking Faceball 2000 for the SNES, right?
No, Faceball for Game
Like-
Boy.
Game Boy, original Game Boy with link cables, daisy chained link cables.
Yeah.
Yep,
my
they got it to
gosh.
work, and they premiered it at PRGE.
That's awesome.
That being said, that's about it. I don't think we have anything more anybody wants to talk about for mods right now.
There's a ton more. We could do a part.
Oh,
two
I mean,
later.
there's
I was
ton
gonna
more,
say
but
we could
yeah.
easily do a part 2, Leo.
All
Yeah.
Like
right.
100%.
This was great
Tom?
though.
Thomas the Tank Engine, Skyrim.
Oh my God, that's scary as shit.
So our next episode will be available June 6th. Until then, this is Gaming Theater Podcast, logging out. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Gaming Theater Podcast is hosted, created, produced, and edited by Leo Garcia, the Geek Scorpio. Our music is A Drinking Game. Stock media provided by Stormwave Audio /Pond5. Our cover art is by Adam Parker. You can find him at ParkerGFX on Twitter. If you want to send us some money to help with these episodes, you can do so at patreon.com/gamingtheaterpresents. Want to send support that doesn't hit your wallet? Please leave a review with wherever you hear your podcasts and share our podcast with your friends. It really helps out. Thank you for listening.